But yeah, so let's see. Let's take a look at Grail units, shall we? So let's talk about, like, good, obviously good ones first. So first thing let's do is set some context. Astrum and Itsuki are both Gen 4, quote-unquote, infantry. They have over 170 BST, access to personal weapons, and can, like, hold their own against the strongest units in the game currently, at least in red and green. They are very safe investments currently, and I don't expect them to be bad investments anytime soon. Itsuki is more expensive because he's a TT unit, but is still worth building. Like, I believe Acarus actually built a +10 Itsuki as well. So very, very solid. Astrum is a little more generic, so he has a lower power ceiling, but is a little bit, I think, has a better stat line. I think Astrum's higher speed gives him options for things like close call builds if you want to do them, and it makes him more effective with things like Ruptured Sky or Blue Flame. But yeah, so let's see, what are the red units? Can I sort this by color? I can. Sick. So Astrum and Itsuki. Frankly, the rest of the swords are not really worth building. The only exception might be Marth, if you have all the copies, just because getting the last couple copies to build the +10 is relatively cheap, right? So not bad. And yes, I know it's a tragedy, but that does mean that, like, Black Knight, Zephiel, Arden, etc. are just kind of not worth it anymore. Now, Kemph, Espeon brings up, is an interesting case. I really, really like Kemph. I think he is a very interesting unit, and if he was like a 3 or 4 star, I bet a ton of people would build him. The problem with Kemph is that even though he is cool, he is gimmicky, and investing Grails for a gimmick is a hard thing to do when you have access to, say, Eliwood, who is a truly broken melee Cavalier. Navarre for turn 1 Gale. Navarre is okay. I think Navarre is starting to drop off in a world where, like, enemy units are just getting so powerful that his Gale Force options are worse by default. But I mean, like, yes, if you're doing, like, dedicated Gale Force teams, he is a free-to-play available, like, good, efficient Gale Force unit. But keep in mind that the primary thing that Gale Force strategies scale with is your brain. Gale Force does not necessarily scale with unit quality as much as it does player skill. So don't be surprised if you build a Gale Force team and find it really hard to play. For example, as someone with a tiny Nino brain, I cannot play Gale Force very well, so I don't really recommend building Gale Force a lot. But that's largely because I don't really have good context for it. So yeah, of the swords, I would say at this point in time, Itsuki and Astrum are kind of the only ones worth building. Kemph is really, really cool. Like, if you want to flex on people with a unique-ass unit, build Kemph. But I don't think you'll get a lot of use out of him, except on, like, the bench in AA, or on, like, ARD. But even on ARD, I think Eliwood is just better. Let's see. Dragons, I guess if you want to build Garen, go for it. He does neutralize dragon weakness. Kind of cool. But yeah, I think his stats are just too outdated. Air, fantastic support unit. I don't think you ever need to +10 her though. I think you would be much happier building her at +0 and keeping her as a bench unit, or as like maybe a niche Aether Raids offense unit. Rather than building her like +10. All the mages, frankly, are not worth building except for Aversa. That includes Leon, that includes Julius. They are all simply too outdated. The only exception is Aversa, and that is just because Aversa is, frankly, super overpowered, and it is a miracle that she is free. Like legitimately, if you don't have a +10 Aversa, kind of recommend just making one because you will find her useful even at like low investment in terms of skills. What about Bartra? Bartra is good, but I think the thing that holds back Bartra is the fact that he does not have a personal weapon. So even though Bartra's generic weapon is very good, and his stat line is very good, I would recommend building Astrum or Itsuki instead, because I think the utility they gain from their personal weapons outweighs the selfish benefits of Barst's generic weapon. But Barst is a great +0 though. Like, amazing +0. If you give him like Armor Smasher, he's a great like Sophis counter too. Oh, Bartra. Rip. My bad. What's a good mid-investment Mass Marth build? Probably like Fury, maybe like Chill Speed, and like just some team buff C skill. You don't need to get too fancy with Mass Marth. The weapon does a lot of the work for you. Hey there, Linux. Happy to have you. Not to be horny on main, but I wish Barst could hug me right now. Damn. Okay. So, red mages literally only build a Versa. I think even for, like, cool gimmick meme builds, Julius is just not worth it. Like, just not worth it. DT, what change could IS do that would make you quit the game instantly? True 6-star characters that don't keep their merges. Like, effectively wasting every merge on a 5-star would be, like, instant game over. So, Lances. Lances are where Grails go to die. Generally speaking, I don't think many of these units are worth building. Eliwood, still pretty good as a score stick, and Casablanca's good fodder. That's kind of the story for most of these, actually. They all have, like, decent fodder, except maybe, like, I don't know, Valter, what does he have? Like Darting Blow or something? Oh, he's got Panic Ploy. Never mind. Yeah, even Valter's good fodder. Clive is the junk one. Yeah. Most of the Lance units are not very good +10s, just because they're kind of low impact. I think Death Knight's really cool, but it's the same problem that Kempf has, where he's gimmicky, and investing a bunch of Grails for building a gimmick is not really where you want to be. Not to mention that his personal weapon kind of has anti-synergy with lulls, and lulls are the best skill for Cavaliers. Most of the time. So if anything, you should be looking at Cavaliers who benefit from using a lull more, not someone who doesn't want to use a lull. Now, I think Finn, if he gets like a personal Brave Lance, could be worth building. Like, I don't think Finn has a bad stat line, but realistically, unless you just like Finn as a character, or you want to hear James Raynor talk like a Fire Emblem man some more, then you probably don't want to invest your Grails in building a +10 Finn. Of course, everything I'm saying here is given the caveat that if you truly love a character and you just want to build them because you like them, do that instead. But either way, all the Lances, I would say, not really worth building. Most of them have really good fodder. If you must build one for like score purposes, please consider building like Eliwood. Maybe building like Conrad is cool for like a fun gimmick. He's got a good stat line. Sigrun is a very competent flyer, and so is Cynthia, but again, Lance flyers are not really in short supply, right? Trevant, rest in peace. Rip. Okay. Let's talk about beast units. Both of these are very good. Pan and Nyasala are excellent Aether Raids defense units. I think Nyasala is a little easier to use. Plus, he has, I think, a better base kit. What with Swift Sparrow and Guard. But, personally, I think Pan is a little harder to deal with overall. At, like, absolute top investment, Pan is an effing nightmare, and you do not want to fight like super invested like Fury 4 Pan. I'm not even gonna look at this weapon. It's just all text, right? Anything with that much text has to be good, right? But by herself, Pan suffers from the same problem that like someone like Kempf does, in that you don't really need to invest Grails to get what she does, because you can just build Eliwood. Pan, even though she is a blue unit, and even though she is a beast, suffers immensely because Eliwood is just so good. Like, legitimately, Eliwood is absurd. And if you want a unit that does what Pan does, just build an Eliwood first and see if you still want Pan at all. But yeah, so Nyasala and Pan, both great AR defense units, both well worth investing all the way. I think they're relatively future-proof too. Nyasala, because he's got really good skill inheritance options in the forms of like steady impact combined with 3 movement, or sturdy impact on 3 movement, and beast synergy is just inherently powerful. DT got a copy of Yogurt. I did buy 1 copy of Yogurt. It was the summon a unit for Grail's part of the heroic paths. I was just like, screw it, I'll take Yogurt. Pan has extra movement, that's true, but she doesn't have extra movement over Eliwood. Like, a lot of movement, a lot of units, like basically all Cavaliers have to pass the Eliwood test. At least for Grail Cavaliers. Her movement is not conditional, Nyasala's is. But okay, dragons, Kana's an easy skip at this point. He's not bad. Like, he's Noe, right? But I think we've all seen that even Noe is not particularly good anymore. If you really want to have like an enemy phase focused blue dragon, just build Noe instead. And if you really like dragons, then I would suggest saving up and investing in someone like a legendary Tiki or a fallen Tiki. You know, go big or go home with dragons, right? Like, don't mess around with these kind of like dinky 2017, 2018 infantry dragons anymore. Fallen Delphia. Pretty good. Renea, I would say get her at +0. You don't need to merge her up at all. Sias is completely outdated. I think even a Refine is not going to be enough to save him. Same problem as Arvis, right? Because he's like literally the same unit, just blue. Not really worth building in. Delphia, I can see some use, perhaps, as like an AR defense, like damage dealing mage. But I don't know. I feel like the benefits of infantry blue mages have a pretty tough hill to climb because they have to face off against Ophelia. So you need to either differentiate yourself from Ophelia, or you need to be as good as Ophelia. And that's not saying that like Delphia is bad, but I'm saying that like even a +0 Ophelia is a truly monstrous threat. Whereas like Delphia at +10 is gonna still be easier to wall than that most of the time. And then there's Brunia. So despite having like really, like, in addition to having very powerful mommy and thickness energy, Brunia is an esports unit supreme. Like, she's very, very good. Like, Brunia is insanely good. Of the TT units, she is one of the very few who justifies her cost. And there is a reason why a lot of like very top-end AR players have acquired and built like high merge, high investment Brunias. Brunia is good because she has a personal weapon that gives you the Idun personal weapon text. She is immune to debuffs. This means you cannot hit her with debuffs. And in Aether raids, basically everyone has maxed out shrines or really highly upgraded shrines, and people are spamming debuffs all over the place, all the time. Like, the fact that you can put buffs on Brunia, and you know they're not going anywhere, the fact that you can just guaranteed not get stuffed by like -7 res or -7 speed or something, makes her very, very consistent. and consistency is what you want on an Aether Raids offense unit. Period. I was considering CC Vantage. The build that I've seen that I would build myself if I had like a really good fodder for it is attack speed solo plus either NFU or NCD or dull ranged. So like one of those three. But CC Vantage can work. I think if you want to go CC Vantage, I would rather build up like a Matthew instead. But Brunia has like very flexible B skill options. Yeah, you can kind of build her however you want. The weapon, again, the weapon is what makes her consistent. So just build her as like the role that you specifically need about offense. Just very good, like very, very good unit. Oliver, total meme. Skip. Ursula, also total meme. Ursula, like, even on, like, thickness levels, just worse than Brunia anyway, so come on. Besides, if you want Ursula, get Summer Ursula, okay? If you're just gonna do it for thirst reasons, just get the Summer one. The true power creep. What units and skills is she checking with NFU? She's checking impactors mostly. So you'd be checking like sturdy impact units. Or units or like beasts and stuff. Okay. Axes. So obviously we did get Flame Emperor. Personally, I don't think Flame Emperor is that good. Mostly because Flame Emperor is a minor upgrade on Halloween Dorcas. And while Halloween Dorcas is not a bad unit, he's not particularly impressive, right? He's a ball of stats. But he's a ball of stats that is very susceptible to armor effective damage. Not to mention magic damage. So it's like, if you want a 180 BST unit, and you don't mind babysitting them, because believe me, you will have to babysit them, then Flame Emperor is okay. But otherwise, I would skip Flame Emperor, and if you're investing primarily because of score, go for Itzgear Astrum instead. Like Astrum, for example, scores really well, and is so much easier to use, it is not even funny. Like, trust me, as someone who's been playing with an armor team on Arena Offense this season, the instant you have like a bunch of armors and you find a legendary Crom, you just want to stop playing the game. Like, it sucks. So Flame Emperor is 180 BST, but does not have a personal weapon. So if you want to like really max out Flame Emperor's score, then you gotta go nuts. Now Winter Jaffar is a different case. Now Winter Jaffar is a very different case, and we'll talk about him when we get there. But I'm talking about specifically like, I should be more specific here and say I'm talking about like the generic kind of like melee enemy phase armors. Summer Ilger, adorable, funny, has a drowning quote when she dies that's really funny. But come on, she's a TT unit, and it's not really worth spending 2,700 Grails to build like a Libra. One of my favorite units, absolute comedic powerhouse, but not really worth the cost of admission in 2020. Legion, good fodder. Like, Legion Axe still pops up every once in a while. The panic weapons are very good. Linus, if you want like a heavy Raven, you know, like Raven but big, then you can build Linus. I think Linus has held up quite well. Really just like all the aggressive, like lopsided infantry have aged quite well. One of the big benefits of Linus is that like you can give him like L&D and Fury and like Gale Force, or you can build him like super nuke with like Ruptured Sky. He's just surprisingly flexible and holds up decently well. The Cavaliers, so I would personally say Wallheart over Groommarth. I think Groommarth is a great +0, but like Wallheart is a better +10. The Flyers, I don't really think any of them are worth building at this point. I would say of the 4, maybe Michaelis, just because his weapon is good, but 2017 units for Grails is a really tough ask. All right, then Winter Jaffar. So the reason Goof uses Winter Jaffar is the reason why Winter Jaffar is good. Namely, that he is heckin' fast. Like, Winter Jaffar is a fast boy, which makes him a truly fantastic, free-to-play accessible user of Special Fighter and Special Fighter accessories, right? You want to build him as, like, a mixed phase armor that can spam specials on either phase and can be used in a variety of contexts. Although he is an armor, his speed means that effective damage is less of a problem, because he's not going to get doubled by anything, right? And he has enough BST as a relatively recent unit that he can take a hit on the chin, sometimes with weapon triangle disadvantage, and walk out alive even if he is hurt really bad. Fast and Jaffarius, kind of. Okay, so Jaffar, good. Again, though, TT unit, so very high investment, right? You've got to go kind of big to make Jaffar good. Of the mages, Small Zura is the standout. She is a dancer. I know Goof uses a +10 Small Zura. I think that's actually a pretty good investment. Tip Scale Girl, I wouldn't +10 her, but she's definitely worth a +0 just as a bench unit. Same reason why Male Robin is still used on the bench, because he's, he can tip the scales, right? And then Picnic Leo. We've seen him before on stream. We know how good he can be. Just use your +0, right? You don't need to make him a +10. In fact, upgrading him kind of makes him worse at his job. You want to leave him strong enough to kill Azura, but weak enough that Azura will always fight him. And then the colorless units. So Clarice, actually a meme. Jamka, we all know Jamka. I think Jamka's relevance has really gone down now that Flyerball is not a dominant strategy. It still pops up every once in a while, but it's not nearly as important to check. So because of that, I think you can safely treat it as like a backup strategy, right? And invest in things like Bike or whatever instead for your primary Aether Raids offense, or other Vantage Sweepers like Matthew. But Jamka is still good, right? Hits really hard, like no complaints. New Year's Corrin, this one's a definite skip. You can do some cute memes with New Year's Corrin, but not 2,700 Grails worth. Fallen Takumi, best use really outside of the Scotty squad is to build him, to pull him as Fury fodder. But legitimately, I think 100 Grails for a copy of Fury 3 is a pretty bad deal. I would rather just give a different A skill instead and save the Grails. Now these two, Rolf and Luis, are very good. Excuse me. Like, Rolf and Luis have comparable stat lines to Brave Lyn. I think Luis is actually like almost identical to Brave Lyn. But they're free-to-play mergeable. Now, I kind of prefer Rolf just because the Candle Wax Bow is pretty nice and it boosts his stats quite a bit. But Luis is fine too. So literally either one of these, they cost the same, but either one is a very good, like, high investment, like, player phase threat. Flying Loki, I think her stats haven't held up particularly well. Flyer teams in general are not as strong as they used to be, just because, like, they can't use lulls, and lulls are the new hotness. But she's still a fine unit. Kranya, I mean, she looks like a meme. She kind of plays like a meme. but it's a really effective meme, right? Kronya is one of the most dominant free-to-play kind of all-purpose offensive strategies because she can use very powerful skill combos. Basically, she can run either like Vantage NCD, Vantage Spiral. She's a dagger unit, so she can debuff things. She can do tons of chip damage. Like, overall, just like very effective AR offense unit. You need some support or like a well-placed bolt tower, but like a lot of people use Kronya and it works a lot of the time. Kronya virus, yep. You know, yeah, you don't want to use Vantage with a Thame. I'm saying, like, you can get the combo, right? Yeah, Luis has 2 more BST, but Lyn has more attack and speed. There you go. Winter CC. Now, I think Winter CC has held up pretty well. I do not regret building a +10 Winter CC. She's still one of my like strongest AR defense units. She gets tons of kills. I will admit a big part of that is just because the cleaner is very overpowered. But Winter CC is a great vehicle for the cleaner on AR defense, and she can carry Bold Fighter. Bold Fighter plus the cleaner is pretty gross. On Aether Raid's offense, you can give her Special Fighter close counter. You can give her like dedicated like range tanking stuff for like Astra Season if you want. You can be pretty flexible with Winter CC. Colorless mega tanks are quite good, and colorless like of the armor mega tanks, CC is one that has held up very well. Same thing with Bathcam. Bathcam, I think most people summon her for Ouch Pouch fodder, just to enable like pre-charge cheese, but she is a competent +10 unit. Her stats are not bad at all. You can mega tank with her even if it's a bit ambitious, but you can do it. And yeah, I think like I've never seen one, but like on paper it's good. And then Ethlyn. Precious, great voice lines. She yells "I'll protect you" really loud when you go into missions and it kind of catches you off guard. But like she's a good unit. If you want to like build her up super high, you can, and I think you'll be impressed with the results. But again, TT unit, so 2,700 grams. So that's kind of like a quick go through of all the Grail units as of, you know, what's the date? March 2020. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll cut this and I'll put it on YouTube.